you look at a cause and effect relationship, right? So here, as we're working on emotional intelligence, letting people lead themselves, helping them with their autonomy, their mental health, and everything else, it leads to a bigger output. That's cause and effect. Most business owners or business leaders, unfortunately, still are stuck with their head in their sand or their head up their butt, sorry, and they want the outcome, but they're not focused on the main cause. If they were just to focus on creating an environment that is conducive to the growth of their employees, the effect would take care of itself. It always does. Who are Generation C and what are their attributes? So it's generally people who are born between 1997 and 2012. And so that means Generation C right now are between the age of 12 and 27. We have 8 team members on our team, and 50% of them are Gen Z. It's a lot of leads to a lot of great dynamic results and great opportunities too. Some challenges, which we're going to be talking about, and you might recognize those in your life as well. Think about the youngest people that you have in your business and on your team. How do they really stand out compared to older generations? What differences do you notice? One of the things that I've picked up over the years is that the older generations still tend to adhere to the old rigid organizational structure where it's trickled down, and there's a boss on top and there's everybody else, and that is not the way leadership works today, and you'll find out why in a little bit. But this is important. So try and reflect on the people that you're trying to lead. Maybe it is your family, maybe it's your extended team, maybe it is team members in your business. So how is Generation C different and how does it show up in their work? We're going to be talking a little bit about pros and cons here. And, there's a host of each, but I would tend to believe that the pros always outshine the cons. And one of the pros about Generation C is that they're much more independent in their thinking, whereas boomers and other generations they're thinking more cohesively, and they're more worried about what other people think. Gen Z tend to be more forward leaning in that aspect, and they don't think as much about what other people think as older generations. They're very tech savvy. So think about it. This generation, they grew up with social media, with digital platforms. They're very used to it. It's been part of their fabric of life for their whole life, most of their life. And so they're digital fast learners. They get things under their skin really fast when it comes to digital platforms, whereas older generations can have a hard time with that. And we've seen that too on our team. And one of the things that Gen Z really values is independence and the feeling of autonomy, like they're controlling their own destiny, and they love skin in the game, and they love diversity, and they're really good at embracing change. And one of the things I've noticed is that the more younger generations feel like they're part of something that makes a difference in the world, the more they feel like they're belonging. And I think that is because the younger generations have a higher awareness than older generations typically, and they grow faster in awareness. And because of that, they need to feel like they're contributing to the well-being of other people and the planet. And so that becomes a pillar in a Gen Z's mindset when they step into a business. Those old structures where just stepping into a corporate American job where it's all about, revenue and hitting the next goal, it's not as fulfilling to a Gen Z. In fact, there's been studies that show that Gen Z are more motivated by a company, by a team that is creating a big difference in the world than they are motivated by pay. That's interesting. It's the first time we've seen that shift. And so leaders who don't understand that and appreciate that are at risk of a high turnover, because Gen Z needs to be led by other values. And so that's one of the things that I tend to believe that we're really good at in this company, is leading with the change that we want to see in the world. And so Gen Z wants to know that their contributions leads to the betterment of the planet and its people. That doesn't mean pay is not part of it. It is, but it's not as important as it has been for other generations. So let's talk about some of the cons about having Gen Zs on your team. So one thing that I've noticed that is almost in every one of them. And now it's not about judging, it's not about classifying people, but they have an incredibly short attention span. Like their minds are like this because the platforms that they've used to engage with over the years are built to distract them. And so their focus is not necessarily the same as older generations. And that can be a liability on a team that actually can pose a pretty big challenge if they don't individually work on that. And that's something that I emphasize, not just to myself, but of course to our team members as well. It can be a pretty big liability if we don't work on it. One of the things you'll also find with Gen Zs is that can be a con depending on how you look at it. Could be a negative or it could be an incredible opportunity for growth, which is the way I choose to see it, is that their job loyalty is not the same as previous generations. As baby boomers, they would look for that career and they would stick to the same business generation after generation, and then they would just stay there and get their pension, and that's it, right? Gen Z is totally different. You got to make sure that they have advancement opportunities as the company grows. That's something I've always emphasized in my business. What I have in my life, I want for everybody. So as the company grows, everyone wins on my team, and that's, I think, a prerequisite today, really, when you're leading people, especially Gen Zs. And if they don't feel like they have advancement opportunities within the business, they're gone as fast as they came. The thing about them feeling like that they are belonging to a worthy cause is one aspect of that. But another thing is too, their attention span. Again, they bounce around a lot, I believe, because they're not as good as going inward as older generations, because they have been placing their focus outside of themselves in digital platforms for most of their life. And so they're easily distracted. They're easily living through their senses. They're not as introspective as older generations probably were. That's just my assumption here. I'm just speaking from personal experience. So one of the things we can do to change that, if you are leading Gen Zs, or if you have a team or a family with Gen Zs, is implement more time to really talk about, get their feedback, do one-on-one meetings, hear from them, and don't listen to hear, listen to understand. Where are they really coming from? When you make a conscious effort to listen, you will pick up the nuances. And I think that's really important. On our team, I have one-on-one meetings with all my team members every week, and then we have a collective team meeting as well. And on those one-on-one meetings, I ask about personal life and professional life at the same time. I think that's really important. If somebody's not doing well on the team, you can make book on the fact that they're not doing well in their personal life. Something's going on in their personal life. And I believe as a leader, it's our responsibility and our job to really help them, not just from a business perspective, but from a leadership perspective, from a personal mentor perspective. And I believe Gen Zs in an increasing degree needs more mentorship than the old school leadership, where it's trickle down again. It's a concept I'm going to be talking about later. That's called bi-directional leadership, mentorship, which I love, and it's something that helped me tremendously in the business, and it will help you too. So we did a podcast recently with a guy, wonderful leader in Denmark, who just sold his business for 1 billion Danish kroners, which is a lot relatively compared to where the majority of businesses are. And he said the thing that really took his results to the next level was when he took 40% out of his calendar time and allocated that time to check in with his team members. And I think leadership today is more about mentorship, and it's more about being present, being available for your team to help them lead themselves. So the leaders of the past probably were very busy getting their teams to think highly of them as a leader. The extraordinary leader today is more preoccupied with getting their teams to think highly of themselves. And that's where effective leadership and mentorship comes in. So how can we as leaders make Gen Zs better at their job, at their positions in the in the company. One of the things I've noticed is that you have to let go of the how for Gen Zs. You've got to empower them, letting them know what the outcome is, and then empowering them to get there. Let them figure out on their own creative solutions. They value independence, they value freedom to work from wherever they are. Because of the fact that they need to feel a sense of autonomy in the way they go about things and in the way they work, we as leaders can empower them to create an environment that is conducive to that way of living and working. Now, that was a big sentence. We'll do that one more time. I believe as leaders, it's our job and our responsibility to create the environment for a Gen Z worker that really is conducive to their unfoldment, to them bringing more to the surface. So, for example, my company are right now sponsoring 3 trainee visas for 3 of my Gen Z team members that are coming over here to work alongside me here in Miami. And it's going to give them a sense of tremendous freedom and tremendous opportunity to work from wherever they want. And we've also invested in WeWork memberships. So, for instance, Sina, who just came over here last month, she's working in WeWorks, which is a global chain. It's an office thing where everybody can meet and go work, and that gives her, I believe, a greater sense of autonomy and just sense of freedom, and that is important. So, with Gen Zs, we want to help define the outcome of the task, the role, the responsibilities, but then giving them the environment that's really conducive to them bringing more to the surface. And as they do that, their creativity will flourish and they will come up with creative solutions that you probably wouldn't have thought of. So one of the things I would recommend if you have Gen Zs, or if you're going to employ Gen Zs, is that give them projects to own fully and then allow them to take ownership. Allow them to take it and run with it, and then just test out their ability to handle things with minimal supervision and minimal, interference, where you just provide feedback on their progress, and that's it. That's not easy in the beginning, especially if you've built your company from scratch. Handing over projects can feel scary, but that's when trust comes in, and you have to realize also where your fears are coming from in that process. So as you work with those fears and you override those fears, it becomes easier and easier to delegate and outsource with trust and autonomy. And you do it in a small scale first, and as that proves successful, you can increase the scope and scale of those responsibilities. One of the things that comes into play here when it's about leading people, and especially Gen Zs, it's emotional intelligence and the importance of mental health in the workplace. That is something that is becoming more and more important across the board in a world that keeps changing, in a world that's full of bad things happening. It's really bad out there, so it must be really good too, but that's for a different YouTube video for a different day. The more important it is that we work on our mental health. And so we don't just encourage on our team, we mandate that people work on themselves because we teach this material and we want to be the best examples we can be. And so providing opportunities for growth in that sense, I just sent 2 of my wonderful team members, who also happens to be Gen Z, to a spa. I gave them a gift and sent them to a spa for a day because they needed that sort of relaxation and getting back into their body after a really intense work period for them. And so I think that is really important. Mental health and sort of the health in general is really important to focus on as a leader, especially if you're leading younger generations. And so you want to strike that balance really well, where the old dogma of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, that's totally out the door. That does not exist anymore in today's world. As I see it, that's going to be changing more and more, even in bigger company structures, where people need to feel a sense of autonomy, where they can balance their life in a better way that leads to better mental health, more balance. And so this is important. Part of why I do one-on-one check-ins with my team, every team member every week, is largely because of that. I want to know how they're doing. I want to know how they're doing because I can feel it. I'm very in tune with my intuition. I can dial in on my team members and I can pretty much message them and ask them what's going on because I feel it if something is slightly out of bounds. And so So I check in with them often, and I place a big emphasis on, regrouping, recharging, and mental health overall. So one of our core values is that we practice what we preach. Every time we hire, personal development is a prerequisite. If people are not open to really working on themselves, they don't belong on the team. Not just this team. I believe it's going to be a prerequisite across the board going forward. Mental health, emotional intelligence, these are terms that are not nice to have, they are need to have in today's work environment, I believe. So if you're watching this and you are leading a team and you have Gen Zs on your team, or any team, I would encourage you to introduce mindfulness practices, wellness programs into the workplace. Let your team members take ownership if they're passionate about it, which you will find most of them are. Providing the right kind of environment doesn't just create a healthier team; it increases productivity, and um, and it's about implementing these things to you look at a cause and effect relationship, right? So here, as we're working on emotional intelligence, letting people lead themselves, helping them with their autonomy, their mental health, and everything else, it leads to a bigger output. That's cause and effect. Most business owners or business leaders, unfortunately, still are stuck with their head in their sand or their head up their butt. Sorry, and they want the outcome, but they're not focused on the main cause. If they were just to focus on creating an environment that is conducive to the growth of their employees, the effect would take care of itself. It always does. And so, are you doing that? Are you placing the emphasis where it needs to be placed on the main cause? And if you want to dive deeper into that, I've created another YouTube video about the natural laws of the universe, and we're going to link to it here at the end of this video so that you can go check that out. But this is really important. It's so basic and it's so simple and it's so misunderstood, anyways, for a lot of leaders, especially leading younger generations. And so let's talk about communication real quick with Generation C. How do you change is communication different with younger generations as opposed to older generations? And the answer is a resounding absolutely it's different. The old communication style in the old office building was that you talked around the water cooler and you had your face-to-face time there, and it was were called into the boss's office, and it would be like a lot of FaceTime with team members. Today, in a virtual environment, that is not the case, and that's our new chief operating officer, Olivia, which is incredible. She's Gen C too, and she's just doing a phenomenal job. I mean, the young lady is brilliant. I say young lady, relatively speaking, but she's just crushing it. And she set up a system for us where we're just communicating across the board with each other in a new way, and it's really brilliant. So communication today is different with Gen Z. It's more digital. And whereas I felt the need to meet more FaceTime, more Zoom time, and that was not the case for her. She's like, no, we're setting up this communication channel. Send me a voice note and I'll take care of things. And so I had to retrain my brain a little bit back to the whole bi-directional leadership that I'll get into in a moment. But so FaceTime is not the same for this generation. It's not needed as much for this generation, I should say, that it is for older generations. It's not that it's not appreciated. It is. I know when we're getting together as a team physically, it's just wonderful. Nothing beats it. But it's not as necessary to get things done as we think it is. So communication with Gen Z is way more digital through digital platforms as it probably would have been for older generations. Slack is a great platform that we're using, different channels in Slack based on different focus areas in the business. It's extremely efficient, and it saves us a lot of time. What we have to realize is that communication is the backbone of all successful leadership. And when you master communication, you're mastering the output of your team. And so let's take a step back and ask ourselves, what is mastering really? You're mastering something when you execute on things effortlessly without the use of conscious resources. So you have to go from understanding it intellectually to integrating it subjectively to a point where it becomes a habit. Now you execute on it effortlessly without the use of conscious resources. That's when you're mastering something. And I believe we can all get better in those areas for sure. I know I'm going to keep mastering this for the rest of my life, but it's certainly a worthy cause, because the better you master this, the better you're going to be mastering the output of your team and your business. Now, I want to go a little deeper into the whole idea about bi-directional leadership. So, your weaknesses might be the strength of a Gen Z, and or vice versa, across the board. And bi-directional leadership is really a concept that Dave Kerpen put words to in his great book, Get Over Yourself. I love that book on leadership, and if you don't have it, get it and really study this concept. And bi-directional leadership means that you are learning from your team members across the board. You're learning from each other. So I'm learning a lot from the Gen Zs that we have in our team, and I know they're learning a lot from me. So the old leadership models are outdated, in my opinion. And it really speaks to the idea that before you can become a great leader at something, you have to be a great follower. And we're all leading or following in different areas of our life. In the case of where the business is going and the vision, I'm leading, and I know my team members are following that vision. But in other aspects of my business, my team members are leading and I'm following. And that's bi-directional leadership. It's something that Napoleon Hill put words to, and something Bob Proctor really helped me understand when I started my journey. And he told me once, he said, Anders, you are a great leader because you have been an intelligent follower for so long, and you're going to keep leading or following in various areas. I remember when he and I created our program together. Bob Proctor and I actually created a program together. Not many people know that, but we did, called The Secret to Real Magic. And I remember he handed me the entire autonomy and authority to create the entire production plan, the program, the content. And so I was leading in that regard. When we got into the studio and it was time to record, he started leading and I followed. And so on my team today, with Sina, for instance, that's doing our social media because that's what she grew up with. That's what she's extraordinarily good at. And I follow and I let her lead. And in other areas, I lead and she follows. In the same with Olivia, and the same with Miguel and Miguel, the same with Josefina, the same with Alejandro, same with all of our great team members. So bi-directional leadership is something that is so important to understand, and it's hard for a lot of leaders because they have their egos way too big, and egos are really the only problem in many cases. The ego takes over and I know better, right? And that's pretty dangerous. Bi-directional leadership, make sure you understand that concept and get the book Get Over Yourself by Dave Kerpen. We would love to take a dialogue with you about your leadership, about your goals, and where you're taking your company and your team, and how you can take your leadership and your company to the next level. Our teams are making ourselves available often for one-on-one sessions where we help you look at where you are in your life and in your company, where the challenges are. And if it's a match, it might not be, but if it's a match with something we're doing, we will present you with a possible path forward to help you create whatever it is that you deserve. And we will put some links down below where you can apply for a strategy session with our team. And so I would encourage you to check out all the great resources below the video, and check out the video that we have linked to here afterwards that has to do with the natural laws of the universe, because the law of cause and effect very much underscores everything that you and I have uncovered today in our video. Thank you so much for watching this video. I have linked to a couple more right here that I think you would like. Now, until next time, it's not who you are that holds you back, it's all the illusions of who you think you're not. This is Anders Hansen. Thank you.